as you said earlier, and as pointed out well in the Cass report, these are complex cases. There may be abuse involved. There may be a myriad of issues that need to be dealt with. And I thought that she made a brilliant point in the report, Dr. Hilary Klass, that none of these decisions regarding irreversible gender change should be made when a patient is under stress or distress. So it begs the issue, how are these issues dealt with? And I thought that one of the other brilliant themes was the importance of having teams of psychologists involved in these cases. Is that makes a lot of sense, does it not, Barbara?
It makes a lot of sense if you are not invested in the outcome. But the trouble is that the organizations such as WPATH, which is supposed to be the premier outfit for providing guidelines for best practices in gender treatment, they themselves, the whole organization is riddled with ideologues and trans activists who are very invested in continuing with this model. What struck me as shocking was the indifference that was shown in Canada. I mean, they just doubled down. Here's this Cass report. Hey, folks, not to mention, in Finland and Sweden, in other countries, they have reversed their policies. They're no longer giving out puberty blockers. They're not allowing any surgeries before the age of, 18 or 19 in these countries. And even the new Labour government in England, has said we will conform to the recommendations of the Cass report.
Indeed.
Yeah, but here everybody's just, well, they can do what they want in England, but we're just doubling down and we're going to continue doing what we're doing. I find
So this is the point, is that any good public policy that serves people needs to be evidence-based and transparent. There's many other important principles. And I thought that it was very powerful in the Cass report how she is very much about truth and evidence and science. And she says that at the core of it, we need to care and genuinely help those to be validated for their sense of self and that journey. That's a kind of a paraphrase of her quote. And I thought that was very powerful. But she said, if we don't fix this issue, we are letting down children and youth of this country, namely the UK. And I think that's really, to me, that struck me as a very courageous and powerful and honorable thing to say. And so we need those kinds of voices in this country as well, don't we, Barbara?
I do think we do. And I think she didn't say this, but I would add to that we need to show a little more respect for parents who know their children better than teachers and a therapist who's only spent 20 minutes or a half hour with their child and is ready to prescribe, puberty blockers to an adolescent. And these parents are treated as if they are the enemy. And so you have teachers, banding together to keep this information from parents. There's something rather diabolical about this to me. This idea that the family bond has no standing in this discussion, and that parents would not be stakeholders with a kind of special interest and a special respect. This is part of the whole ideology that children have to be liberated, in a sense, from their families.
But Barbara, I think your point is well taken, is that parents are surely the primary caregiver here. And parents are caught in a difficult situation. We need to have compassion for everyone involved here, including parents. But the Cass report does a brilliant job exposing the rot of that gender transition industry. And so I think that's the lesson here, isn't it?
I mean, it was psychologists, medical doctors, like endocrinologists, and right down the line, all the pediatric societies, the American Medical Association, all of them, captured by ideologues, and all signed on to this. So it does show you, the madness of crowds. You know that book, Tulip
Mm.
Lane, the uh, mass delusions and the madness of crowds. And we are in the midst of a madness that has,
Hmm.
like a virus, has swept through associations, like all the people, the institutions that we trust the most. And it's not just the medical institutions, it's also the legal institutions.
Hmm.
That's when it gets really bad, is when it gets entrenched into law, and when our legal professions are not a bulwark against this madness.
Indeed.
That's
So,
rough.
so quickly, another good example here that I think is also fascinating, and you've written about it. I think you wrote about it in the National Post a few months ago, but it was reference to the World Professional Association of Transgender Health, or WPATH, and there's the so-called scandal regarding the WPATH files. Quickly, what was that scandal there?
Well, the WPATH is supposedly this group that puts out the guidelines for therapists and for parents and for everybody to, for best practices in treating in gender health. And everybody knows, or not everybody, but everybody that is objective understands that this is not a serious organization that is guided by objectivity, like the CAS report. These are people who do come to their task with a bias, and so their guidelines have been based on what they say are studies, but which in the CAS report are alluded to as bad studies with bad methodology and not
Hmm.
reliable studies. They had Zoom conversations that were recorded and leaked, and
Mm.
that was the scandal. Within those Zoom conversations, they admitted all kinds of things. We don't really know what we're doing. Like I'm not quoting from,
Hmm.
it's the gist. We have no idea what we're doing. That was basically what came out of these recorded
Hmm.
Zoom sessions, that very shocking to people. And they basically admitted that it was all about the theory, and it was all about promoting an agenda. Had very nothing really to do with best practices for children or
Hmm.
anybody. So that was the scandal with WPATH, and they've been disgraced by anybody that is really interested in, you know, um,
Hmm.
science-based medicine.
Indeed. Yeah. So the WPATH scandal confirmed that it appears that they were not basing their guidelines on evidence. It
No,
was rather based, again, on the practice of ideology than not really healthcare.
exactly, exactly.
So, in this context, Barbara, I mean, I guess the other question would be, I mean, there's so many drivers in this, and we'll get to that in a moment. But I guess one of the things that occurs to me is there's, to put it crassly, there's an industry involved in these gender transitions in the background that frankly has a monetary interest in promoting it. And that may or may not serve the patient involved. I'm thinking of the incredible cost of, well, drugs, surgery. There's a myriad of people that, I mean, every child, I think I've heard that every gender transition for a child involves at least $150,000 of monies to be made. Is that too cynical a view of what's going on here as well? And is that a driver involved in promoting this kind of dysfunctional practice?
No, I think it's I don't think it's very cynical, because I think that it's clear there is such a thing as big pharma. I mean, they, of course they want to find the cure for cancer and the cure for this and the cure for that. That's great.
Hmm.
But if they happen to, if they have a drug, if they know that once you start on this pathway, by the way, of the medications, the puberty blockers, if you once you've gone on to cross-sex hormones, you're on them for life. You'll never get off them. You can't, because they
Hmm.
it's not like you can take a magic pill and it's forever. Like it's a daily, you have to, your body wants to reject what you're doing to it. So
Mhm.
you have to keep doing it, There's certainly not, you don't see the drug companies coming out and saying, we actually feel terrible that this is happening because these drugs were not meant for,
Mhm.
children to on a pathway like this. And we advise, you know, therapists to start being more cautious and not to put kids on puberty blockers so fast. We don't see
Mhm.
any of the drug companies saying that, do we?
Yeah,
So
no, that's a very good point. So as we wrap up our far-reaching discussion, Barbara, and it's been very insightful. What is the role of citizens? We know that politicians have certainly play a significant role in this, but what can we as citizens do to ground our professions, including medical health care, back onto evidence?
look, if we have a change of government in the next, election, I think we'll see a huge change in approach. I'm not saying every single thing will be rolled back, but I think you'll see in general a discouragement of the kind of freedom to push those boundaries that's coming from the top. Because really, don't cultures rot from the head down? I mean, really.
Hmm.
And a political leader, can set the tone
Hmm.
for what they expect from their own caucus, but also uh, what they hope for in the general population. And
Indeed.
yeah, so we have to hope for that.
All right. So, well, thank you for that encouragement, Barbara, for encouraging all citizens to speak up about this important issue. It does involve the health and well being of our children, and surely that matters. So, I think the CAS report again underlines the importance of evidence and research and how we need to ensure that our institutions are not captured by ideology, but serve the people they claim to serve. So thank you so much, Barbara, for joining our conversation today and for your leadership and courage and for joining us today.
Thank you so much, David. It's such a pleasure to be here and to have the leisure to, to have these long discussions. Usually it's like a two-minute clip, and that's all you get. So I really appreciate the chance to really have a proper discussion on and as you say, a really crucial topic.
Thank you, Barbara.
Without open discussion and debate, you're not thinking, nor are you free. Comment below. We'd love for you to join the conversation.